Hello, welcome. In this video, we're going to be doing a writing exercise that will help us to reprogram our nervous system and our nervous system responses to stimulus. Human intelligence is expressed through our ability to make new responses to stimulus and experiences. The human animal differs from other animals in that other animals respond and react from pre-programmed choices. They have the choice between different pre-programmed responses called instinct, basically. Humans have the intelligence to create new responses to new stimulus. Our nervous system, when traumatized, loses its ability to create new responses. It will act out of protective mechanisms. So with this exercise today, we're going to rewrite our birth story and our childhood story to reprogram the nervous system so that we can reclaim this intelligence and this power to be in homeostasis with our environment, so that our environment doesn't overwhelm us and put us into fight, flight, or freeze, so that we can be in harmony with our environment and respond out of our intelligence. I'd like to read a quote from this book, The Human Side of Being Human, by Harvey Jackins. He states, "Vast intelligence, zestful enjoyment of living, loving cooperative relationships with others, these seem to constitute the essential human nature. All the rest of human behavior and feeling, except these three innate characteristics and their results, is acquired, is not inherent, is the result of something having gone wrong." Basically, when we're born, we have this vast intelligence, this zest for life. We're good. We have a goodness. And then, as he states, when something goes wrong, we start to lose that connection with those qualities. What does it mean when something goes wrong? It means we get hurt. We have a childhood hurt or trauma. So I'm sure we all have felt those times when something happens in our life and our reaction bypasses our conscious control in our mind, and we go into things such as fight, flight, or freeze, emotional overwhelm. We put up barriers, intimacy barriers. We have these reactions that, it's our nervous system trying to protect us from a perceived threat. When we have trauma as a child, our mind takes a screenshot of everything. The temperature, the light, where we are, who we're with, our connection with who we're with, who they represent. And then later in life, if things start to line up like they did in that screenshot, it can send our nervous system into a reaction that might not be appropriate anymore. So to gain control, to reclaim our power to have homeostasis with our environment and react from a calm place of intelligence, we're going to look at the things we like to change about ourselves, how this shows up, how the trauma from childhood is expressing now. Is it abandonment issues, jealousy, anger, intimacy issues, physical problems? We're going to look at these things. We're going to rewrite our story to support being able to react now from a different place. So to start with, you're going to need a pencil, pen, paper. And as we do this exercise, I'll give you some instructions, and then you'll pause the video, do the writing exercise, and then start the video again. To start with, we're going to make two lists. We're going to list the things you want to work on. And you can start from the big stuff. If you've got a big issue you're working with, and most likely if you're here interested in this work, you're probably doing breath work or some other healing modality, And this is meant to pair with that. This is meant to pair with the emotional healing aspect of processing the emotions. And this deals with the mental aspect, the nervous system aspect of it. So you're going to write this list of the things you want to work on. Examples could be, fight, flight, or freeze to certain stimulus, jealousy, anger, fear, despair, hopelessness, depression, sadness, whatever you're in the middle of accomplishing right now. Instead of using the word challenge, let's say accomplishment that you're in the middle of. Going to make a list of these and take your time with it. You can be specific. It can be like the big ones, the big issues, the big traumas. It can be subtle things, So there's two parts for the first instruction. Write that list of what you'd like to heal, what you'd like to overcome, and then a list of the qualities and traits about yourself that you appreciate. What you're grateful for, your superpowers, whatever that may be. So go ahead and take a little time now and write those two lists, and go ahead and pause the video and then come back when you're ready. All right, so hopefully now you've got those two lists and you're looking at things you'd like to change about yourself and qualities that you really appreciate. We're going to mix these in with a story you're going to be writing to your nervous system. And your nervous system doesn't know the difference, really. It's like a computer program. It doesn't know the difference between past and present, true or false. It believes what you tell it. So even though your mind may, during this next part of the exercise, your mind may be kind of saying, but I know this isn't real, this didn't happen to me, this isn't my birth story. Just know that you're writing a letter to your nervous system and it's going to believe it. And you can help it believe it. So now, as we write this story, I would suggest you start at conception. The way this process came out was that I was hanging out with a friend for a long weekend, and we were talking about our relationship issues, and I was complaining about this, these patterns that show up for me in relationship and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden she said, you know what? Let me tell you about your birth. And she described how I was born, and they put me on a golden platter with chocolate and passed me around the room, and everyone appreciated me and ate up the chocolate. And my mind is going, what is going on? Like, this was not my birth story. And then as she continued to elaborate on this beautiful birth scenario, she then stopped and said, tell me more about your birth. So I kind of got it. I was like, oh, we're creating this new story. And so I picked it up and started talking about what would have been the ideal birth for me, the ideal situation. My parents planned me, wanted me, the hospital setting. And then throughout this weekend, every once in a while, she would say to me, so tell me more about your birth or your childhood. And it gave me this opportunity to keep going with this story and to elaborate and to build in different things that felt good to me. I noticed that it had an effect on me, had an effect on basically my nervous system. And a week or two later, I sat down and I wrote from conception. I took the time and I wrote out this story of my ideal birth. And what I did was I looked at these things I wanted to heal, and I thought, okay, what situation in my birth story, my early childhood, would have supported me being able to respond to these things? Like something for me was abandonment issues. So looking at the times that I was abandoned as a kid, I changed that story, that I was supported and loved, and my parents, instead of splitting up, my parents demonstrated a healthy relationship. Even though my mind knew it wasn't real, I wrote it out as if it was real. I finished this story. I think I went up to maybe 7 or 8 years old, and It's included all the positive things that would have supported me healing my issues, mainly this abandonment issue I was working with. I took this story, I called up a friend, and I said, "Can I read you a story?" "Yeah, sure." So I read it out loud to somebody, and that felt really powerful. And then in the future, if I would notice myself slipping into a nervous system response from trauma, I would remember the story and I would say, "Wait a minute, no, that's right. My mother or father taught me how to respond to this in an intelligent way, how to respond to this in a way that is healthy and in the present moment instead of reacting out of a trauma response from the past." And I saw that it affected my nervous system, and I saw the results that it would completely shift those trauma responses, and eventually they went away. So what you're going to do next is you're going to take those two lists and you're going to incorporate them into a story. When I was conceived, and you'll look specifically at the things you want to heal. What situation in childhood or in my birth would support me healing this. And it could just be your parents demonstrated a healthy relationship that enabled you to have a calm, intelligent response. If you're looking at physical ailments, you could add into your story that you were taught how to successfully heal physical ailments. Get creative with it, take your time with it. Start at the beginning at conception, and you can be as detailed as you want to be. Some examples from my story. The first time I felt abandoned was when my sister was born. I was 2 years old, my sister was born, all the attention went to her, and I felt abandoned. My nervous system felt abandoned and went into a reaction. And I noticed later in relationships, when things would line up a certain way or around the 2-year mark, I would start to feel abandoned or fear they were going to abandon me, and I would then go into these kind of self-destructive or relationship-destructive tendencies that would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So in the story, when my sister was born, we all were a family unit, and there was so much love, and I supported my sister, and she loved me, and my mom continued to give me love and nurturing. Another thing was that my dad and mom divorced, and my dad moved away. Again, I felt abandoned. So I rewrote the story that my dad and mom stayed together, and they had a beautiful, healthy, loving relationship. And even though my mind knew none of that was true, the nervous system doesn't know the difference. It's like a computer program. You can reprogram it. The subconscious can be reprogrammed and the nervous system. And as you're doing this exercise, notice if it stimulates any emotion. If you write out this beautiful birth for yourself, it may bring up grief that you didn't have that. And so that's a perfect opportunity to then do some breath work, do some processing. Don't use this exercise to suppress any emotions. And if it stirs up stuff, use your tools that you have. Hopefully you're pairing this with some rebirthing breath work. And write the story till it feels kind of like at a natural completion point. Mine was around like 7 or 8 years old. Take your time with it, use details, and importantly, bring in the senses. If you take the time to remember, sit, like right now you can do this, and just sit and remember a really pleasant memory, maybe a vacation or just one of those like ideal memories. And remember the sight, the smell, how you felt in your body, textures. Bring your senses into it because those senses are all part of that snapshot. So as you're writing the story, bring the senses into it. Our house smelled great when I was a kid. When I was born, I was met with a beautiful fabric that wrapped me up, or my mom's arms, which were warm and soft. What did you hear? What did you see? What did you smell? Tastes. Bring the senses into this story. So go ahead and do that now. And go ahead and pause the video. Take as much time as you like. I've got a few more instructions for this process afterwards. Go ahead and pause the video now. And maybe this is going to take you some days, and that's okay. Maybe it'll take you a few minutes. Write out this beautiful new story for yourself to your nervous system. And then I'll see you when I see you. All right. So hopefully now you've got your story. Words are powerful. Words carry energy and vibration and frequency. So let's do a little editing with this story now. Let's go back and look at any place where you've used negative statements, where you've I didn't experience pain in this instance, or my mother was not abusive this time. Because the nervous system and the subconscious pick up on big words, we want to make sure that everything is a positive. Same thing when you're working with affirmations. I, Aaron, now feel good in my body at all times. It feels really good to say. I feel it in my body. I, Aaron, no longer feel pain. That doesn't quite feel the same. And the subconscious picks up, I now feel pain. So making sure that everything is in a positive statement. And just checking as you read over it that you've included these positive qualities that you listed in the beginning of this exercise, these superpowers. Including them, mixing some of those in there too, because those are absolutely true. Those, are part of your inherent nature, and kind of blending that in so that it can help the nervous system with some truth in this. All right, so now you've got this story, kind of done some editing, made sure you brought in these positive qualities to support you. But mostly it's about, rewriting any of these traumatic events, rewriting this beautiful story to tell your nervous system. So the first thing I would do is just read it to yourself out loud. You could start with, Dear Nervous System, I have a story to tell you. And then edit as much as you need to before you get to the point where this is a story you can share with a friend. And then call somebody up or visit with a friend, depending on their level of understanding how things, you're processing emotions and processing mental stuff. You may need to kind of explain a little bit, but tell them this story as if it's true. And then the homework after that is to notice when you go into a nervous system response that is from trauma. And what does that look like? That looks like maybe something happens, your heart starts beating, you notice you're kind of pulling away into flight, or you get angry and want to challenge something, freeze, go into, it's just an emotional reaction. So if you notice this happening, pause and remember your story. Maybe pick it up and read it again. I would reread mine every other day or so. And remember, I have, in my past, I have the skills and abilities to respond now from a different place, from a healthy place, from homeostasis. Okay, and this is something you can do with a friend. Like how I developed this, somebody started it for me. So you could also get together with a friend, and you could tell them their birth story, get them started with their birth story, and then say, tell me more about your birth, and then hand it over to them to take it over. And then periodically, through your friendship, ask them to tell you more. This is something to really, keep it going. keep the momentum of this going, and it will change your nervous system responses. It will create more relaxation and peace, and it pairs really well with the emotional work. So also, as you do this and you write this, pay attention to the emotions, take time to process them, love yourself, nurture yourself. You are intelligent, you are good, you have a zest for life, and anything that isn't that can be healed. So thank you very much for participating in this. I hope it works for you. I hope it brings you some happiness and joy and healing. Many blessings.